Yo, what's good, with y'all? In today's video, I got how to make basic UI. I do want to go ahead and throw out a disclaimer. I am not a UI maker. This video is simply to show people who are like new to Roblox Studio, like how to create UI and how to make UI elements, like the basic just elements in Studio using the default tools and whatnot and stuff. That's all this video's purpose is for and stuff. I'm not a UI maker, I am just a scripter, but I've had to make UI obviously for videos. But anyway, let's go ahead and get straight into it. Okay, so first we're gonna look at this Explorer tab. If you don't see the Explorer tab, click Window at the top, assuming you have the newly updated version of Studio, and then you're just gonna click Explore, right? So then you're really gonna pay attention to Starter GUI. So as the name implies, Starter GUI. Stands for Graphical User Interface, right? So this is the starter. This is what players are going to start with, right? Um, Now to clarify something, right? First things first, we need a screen GUI. Before you can do anything, you need a screen GUI. Consider this to be the main container of all of your UI elements for that specific UI, right? This is the main container, right? It's like how a car has like, the glove block, the glove box, the center console and stuff, the glove box. You have the little storage areas behind the seats and stuff. On the side of the doors, you have the trunk. But at the end of the day, that's all considered a part of the car. So that's essentially what the screen GUI is, right? So just to clarify something, right? Let's say you see, or actually, no, I'll get into that in a second. Okay, so we have our screen GUI. Let's name it something meaningful. Let's say this is our core GUI, like for our core elements of our game, right? And then you have a wide range of UI elements to choose from. You you have stuff like frames, text buttons, text labels, image labels, text boxes, image buttons. These are, if I'm not mistaken, the most commonly used UI elements and stuff. To explain what each one is, a frame is just simply like it's just imagine a UI element that doesn't serve a like logical purpose. Like you don't need to display anything like image if you don't need to display like an image, text, or a button and stuff, then you would just use a frame. A frame is more so for like, making stuff like dividers and whatnot, just stuff like that, if that makes sense. Then you have your text buttons. Everything else is kind of self-explanatory. This is for when you want to have text and whatnot. You can edit the properties and stuff. You can change the text and stuff. You can adjust the properties and stuff to make it stand out more. And yeah. So this is for obviously when you want to detect user input. If you want to be able to detect when a player clicks a button, then you have image button, which is literally the same thing. It's just instead of text, you have an image, right? Then you have yourself text boxes. This is when you want, again, user input, where you want players to be able to insert things, type things. Let's say like you have like a quiz game and you want them to insert their answers here, and then and they can insert their answers here, and then you can just verify if whether or not they have the correct answer or not. And then we have text labels, which is simply it's just a text button. The only difference is you can't click it like a text button. This is just simply for displaying text. A text button is for displaying text as well as for detecting user input when they click the button. A text label is just simply for detecting or sorry, a text label is just simply to display text, not to detect anything. And then one more element is a scrolling frame. Let's say you have like a lot of stuff you want to show, like a whole bunch of game passes or like a leaderboard, you would use a scrolling frame, which essentially just allows you to just scroll. It just allows you to have like a lot of elements. So like let me adjust the size of this real quick. As you can see, I can scroll with this, right? So there's space for more elements than there would be if it was just this, right? Um, and then each one has its own different properties. Some properties are universal, they're common across like all elements and stuff. Things like background color, background transparency, name, all of them have names and stuff, but certain things are only for whatchamacallit, are only for certain elements. Like for example, like these image settings, that's only for image button or an image label, which I believe in it, yeah, and stuff. We do have image labels and stuff, right? So some properties are specific towards that and stuff. At the top, you have your data, which is just simply like the background transparency. If you want the background to be transparent, if you want to change the color of your UI element and whatnot, just that. Your border, you want to name your UI element and stuff, change the position, the sizing, and whatnot. You go down here, and then here you have your text options, right? If you want bolded text, adjust the line height, rich text, which just makes the text look thicker. Change the text color if you want. So as well, you can scale the text, make it much larger. It'll scale with the UI element itself and stuff. So yeah, just a whole bunch of properties and whatnot. And yeah, and then just like how we put these UI elements inside of the core GUI, you can also put elements inside of one another. So usually most people put elements inside of like frames and stuff like that. So like let's say like I wanted to have like I don't know like a Game Pass section, right? I would use this frame to hold all of my Game Pass stuff. So let's say this text button right here is one of the Game Pass buttons. I would just drag this over into the frame. Now it's considered a child of the frame. The frame is considered its parent, right? So yeah, that's just a little bit of organization. It's very important that you give each UI element, please, 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 make sure you give each UI element a unique name. Do not leave the default name and don't give it a generic name either. Don't have button 1, button 2, button 3. Give it a meaningful name that correlates to its purpose and stuff. If this is for cash, then you could name this. Like let's say like this is for double XP. You could call it double XP. Text button or button, or you could use the text instead of the button. Or sorry, you could use the text instead of the name. Like if you wanted, you could rely on the text and stuff. So like if it's a double XP and you want to rely on text. But the point is you need meaningful names because it seems very simple, like how it is right now. It seems very simple how it is now, like, oh, okay, I only have a few elements, I know what everything does, but trust me, when you have a whole bunch of core GUIs and, buttons and frames and all that stuff, it becomes very confusing. It can become very confusing very quickly. So that's why I suggest for you to have like meaningful names and stuff. If you go watch my other videos, you'll see that each UI element, I give it a unique name. It does not have the default generic name. And so that I remember like, okay, this does this does that and whatnot. Also another thing to note, let me just move this other way so I can actually see. So when testing, right? Let's go ahead. Let's say you click play to test, right? This is my UI. Now, one thing I've seen some people do, you see how we have UI. Let's say you wanted to test something live, like you wanted to change something live, just to test it, right? Now, just for clarity's sake, whatever you change while the game is in progress will not save unless it's like scripting changes, and that's if you have that setting enabled. You can edit the script while you're testing, and depending on your settings, that can save. But like UI and stuff, you can't edit that and it'll save. If you edit UI and you want it to carry over, then you could just click it, copy it, and then just delete the old version and paste it once you stop testing. But yeah, so you'll notice this, right? You see we have our text button right here and stuff, right? It would be this text button, right? You see how we have this text button? So let's say I want to change it. Like, I want to try a different color. I don't like how blue looks with it, right? Now let's do that. And change the text color. Let's try green. Why isn't it working? Why is it still blue? Now, that is because, remember what this is called? This is called starter GUI. This is essentially the blueprint. What Roblox does is when you click play and you start the game, and or the player joins the game, it's just creating a copy of this and just giving it to that player, right? But the player has their own copy. The players are not using this as their UI. They just receive a copy, and then the client, as in the player, handles their own version of the UI, their own cloned version of it. So to access GUI, like the player's UI, to change it and stuff, you would go to players, find your player GUI, and then you would see everything here and stuff, right? And then you'd go here and then you'd be like, okay, let me change it green. As you can see, now we see the changes apply, right? Then if I stop testing, like I said, it reverts because, you know, those changes in the environment and like the workspace don't save, or just in general, don't save, except for scripting changes if like while you're testing and stuff. But yeah, so this is the basic video on how to create UI elements and stuff. If you want other stuff like I can show you guys, I'm not really a front end person, but I can show you guys how to do like coding with UI and stuff like that, like buttons, how to detect when people click buttons, or if their mouse enters buttons. It's like just basic UI programming and stuff. Like teach you guys how to do stuff like that. Just let me know in the comments if you enjoyed the video. Definitely leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching now, and hope you guys enjoyed.